So hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Milk Eggs.
And a whole lot of tea.
And you know, my name's Brandon.
I'm Allegra.
And Allegra, we are here at Cordell Hall Legislation Building with the one and only who?
Representative Gloria Johnson.
Miss Representative Gloria Johnson. Thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. You are just a bright and just a joy of a human.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We've just loved getting to know you, and we just want to thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining our small but mighty podcast. Yeah. So, Gloria, we got some things to talk about. We're going to talk about defining democracy, academic freedom, and we're going to have to shade some politicians up in here.
Yes.
So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, cool. Let's get ahead and get started. So welcome again. So Representative Gloria Johnson. Can I say your full name, or how do you want me to?
Just call me Gloria.
Gloria. She said it. She said, "Call me Gloria." Mama,
Gloria.
You heard that. Yeah. All right. So in March 2023, you stood alongside Representative Justin Pearson and Justin Jones in a historic moment that caught national attention, and you three were titled the Tennessee Three. So what was going through your mind during that charged moment of solidarity, and why did you feel the need to stand for such a bold, for democracy and justice?
You know, we had talked about it all morning, the fact that they were not allowing us to speak to the thousands of people who had gathered there because they were scared for their community. You know, we had lost children, we had lost some of the staff at Covenant School, and thousands showed up. It was parents, it was students, it was grandparents, everybody coming together because they want to see an end to gun violence in our schools and in our communities. And it wasn't just the Covenant families, it was families from Memphis and families from Knoxville who are sick and tired of gun violence. And they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they're sick and tired of hearing thoughts and prayers when we have the ability to be, if you want to make it about God, then we can be God's vessel to do something about gun violence. And instead of doing something, they offer thoughts and prayers and refuse to let us address the people that were there for that reason.
Yeah, because thoughts and prayers aren't going to help.
Well,
It will, but
We need some action.
Yeah.
Action is what you're saying.
And that's you know, that's why we're here. We're not pastors, we're not here to pray for folks. We can do that, but we are here to take action to solve problems.
Right.
And one of those big problems that 80% of Tennesseans see is the problem of gun violence. We know that in Tennessee, well, in every state in the country, guns are now the #1 killer of children. But what people really need to understand is that more children in Tennessee, we have 50% more children die from guns than the national average.
Yep.
That is a choice
That just
from
makes my
bad
heart
policy. There's no reason for this to be happening.
And they're kids.
Yes, children.
They have, choices are limited.
Right. They're looking to us to protect them, and that's what these kids were saying. All the students that came down here, they were chanting, "Please protect us, please protect us." That's all they're asking.
That's all they
for.
want. That's all we want.
I didn't have to worry about, when I was a kid, I didn't worry about being shot up in my classroom. You know, we had tornado drills.
Exactly.
And we had bomb,
Stop, drop
you
a
know,
ball.
the whole nuclear thing was gone. That's how old I am. But, you know, the thing that they have to worry about that while in class.
Yep.
And we're not talking about violating the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment is very clear on well regulated. And so what we're talking about is making sure people store their guns safely and making sure that dangerous folks don't have access to weapons. These are things that we can do that will cut down the gun violence in our state. And why would we not? Because it doesn't affect the right of a person who is safe to own a weapon.
Absolutely. That's absolutely.
And it's sad because you can, just like cigarettes, you go in, show an ID, get them right from the counter.
Yeah.
Same thing with a gun nowadays, I feel like. I mean, here's my
Anyone can
ID.
get a
Here,
gun.
well, let me have a gun.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No training behind it at all.
It's really scary, and then you can go carry it if you like. So for us, we were thinking, they didn't even have welcoming and honoring. They didn't give us an opportunity to just say,
A moment of silence.
we see you, we hear you, we care about how you're feeling. That's what we wanted to do. And we would try when they wouldn't even call on me. I think they called on Rep. Jones and Rep. Pearson, but they would cut their mic if they tried to talk about it. And so, and so we were sick and tired of not being able to say to these people, we see you. And so we decided in between bills to just walk to the well and start talking. And at the time, I didn't think of it as courage, or I just thought it was just inside of me. I was present at Central High School when we had a school shooting in 2008. I'm going to fight like hell to prevent gun violence. And so I felt the least I could do was walk to the well and address these families that were here and that were hurting, this community that was hurting deeply.
And you did it.
It makes me like you so much more. Just, I mean, not that I already have, but
You
just,
did
it
it.
just keeps growing.
You did it. So another question for you. So how did this, it was a powerful moment, and with the Representative Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, how did y'all's friendship begin?
Justin Jones and I have been friends for over 10 years.
Oh.
So when he was 17 at Fisk, and he was down here fighting for college IDs to count for voting IDs. And then we worked together organizing for Medicaid expansion for health care together. So I have known Justin as an activist, Justin Jones, since he was 17 at Fisk and was down here for voting rights. And then Rep. Pearson, I got to know him later, right before he ran for office, but I read up on him, talked to friends about him, and so early on got in to support his campaign because I knew he was another voice that we desperately need down here. And so I'm so proud of both of those young men, and they're such strong advocates for their community. And we just need more folks like them.
Yeah. Oh, just good Southern folk, to make a difference.
And it was just so interesting that it turned out, we didn't plan it this way or anything, but we had all three grand divisions. Justin J. Pearson is from Memphis, Justin Jones from Nashville, and I'm from Knoxville. So we had represented all parts of the state.
Yeah, that was what's up.
That's amazing.
And then after that, you met Kamala Harris, VP Kamala Harris.
You just met some good things.
I mean, people say, there are some people out there, the detractors, that will say, oh, they just did it for attention. But when we did that, we never expected any attention. And us going to the well is not what brought the attention.
Right.
Because that would have been a one-night news story in Nashville.
Right.
That's all, that would have been a one-night news story in Nashville. But how the Republicans reacted,
That part.
their venom, their vile, their vitriol, that is what made it go national. The idea that they were going to expel members for fighting for their districts. And so, the only people who had been expelled in Tennessee before in the Tennessee legislature had committed literal crimes. And we thought we were breaking a rule of speaking without being called on. We found out it's not even a rule. We just broke decorum.
We're going to talk about some decorum.
Someone got the little honey herd.
Right.
And
Well, right,
talking
because
about
somebody
decorum.
didn't know how to deal with somebody speaking out for 6 minutes on the House floor and lost their little minds. And
Lost
you
it.
know, as a teacher, all I can think about is I can't help it if you can't control your classroom.
You need some
can't,
classroom
right?
management.
Well, because it comes
So-
down to it is the leader. You are in charge. You are that
And,
person.
right,
to-
and he did not know what to do.
He didn't
and
know what to
all
do.
they did was lose their minds. They were
did.
so out of control. It, honestly, I couldn't even turn around and look what was happening on the dais behind me because it was so funny. They were so angry. It's like, how can you get so angry about this? It's just like, it was, I mean, it was a little bit hilarious.
It was. It was.
Because it's like they are losing their ever-loving
losing their
minds. And all
shits.
we're doing is saying, we see you,
We hear you.
and we care about this issue.
And let's talk about it.
Yes.
Let's not cry.
And yeah,
That's
they
just
lost their minds.
crazy.
And you know, that night, that was a Thursday night. I think it was Rep Jones and I went out to dinner. We come back and my scooter is locked in the garage, and I don't remember if we were in my car or his car was in the garage. My scooter was in the garage. I guess we were in my car. And then our badges, we were locked out.
They locked your scooter up.
They turned off our badges so they didn't work on to get in the
Hetty.
building or the garage.
Without y'all even knowing, without no
Without
heads
us even
up.
knowing. So Justin's like, "How do I get my car?" And I'm like, "How do I get my
My scooter."
So we think, okay, that's our punishment. You know, they've turned off our badges. We find one of the highway patrol. We finally get in and get our stuff, but. You know, it was just kind of ridiculous. Like, oh, that's because
some
we thought there would be
petty.
something.
But
you know.
not.
Then we come back Monday, and 30 minutes before my committee, I get a letter saying that I've been cut off all my committees. I've been taken off all my committees. And so I'm like, wait,
Gloria.
what? And I was like, I'm going to go to committee anyway and see what's up. And so both Justin and I went to committee and to make them tell us that we couldn't be there. And then that Monday night, we go onto the House floor. And as I'm walking onto the House floor, somebody says, I hear they've got resolutions to expel y'all. And we're like, what? So they
Dang.
cut our badges, they cut us from committees, and now they're going to expel us. And so it was really, really tough because, I mean, it was just beyond belief that for, breaking decorum,
Yeah.
you could be expelled from the Tennessee for actually doing what the 70,000 people that sent us there wanted us to do.
Yes.
Which was speak up, because all three of our districts are very serious about getting rid of gun violence. We were speaking up for our districts. And the idea that they would expel us for doing that to me is outrageous. And to the country, it
Yeah.
was outrageous.
Wow.
I mean, we went home, and in Rep Garrett's district and in Scotty Campbell's district in Far East Tennessee, they put out a robocall on the other side of the aisle that said we brought pipe bombs, and all this violence happened. Craziness. I mean, I was so busy, and I should have brought a lawsuit,
Yeah.
but I did not. But to
Dang.
say that we brought pipe bombs and all of this stuff is
Took
just
this-
crazy. There are still people out there that heard that nonsense and believe it. And the speaker that day went on news in Knoxville and went on national Fox News to say there was, all of this violence. And you asked the Tennessee Highway Patrol, they said there was absolutely no violence, there was no damage, nobody banged on doors, none of this happened.
Wow. Well, speaking of stupidity,
Let's talk about the speaker.
another question for you. I'm just taken back. Okay, so
Me too. I need a
there has
drink.
been right.
Right?
Look, can we talk about, as a former teacher, to mention the future of academic freedom?
Yes.
Okay. It's like there's an ongoing battle over banning books and limiting educational content. Seems like it's a bigger trend to restrict academic freedom. They want folks to be dumb. They just don't want people to be educate themselves. So especially with this House Bill 793. For our viewers, this bill allows education agencies to refuse enrollment for students unlawfully present in the U.S., even if it's a direct conflict with federal law. Please explain to me why.
Yeah, most of the world doesn't understand why up here we pass lawsuits, not laws. We constantly tell them this is unconstitutional, and they do not care. It's ideological for them. They even put more money in the state budget to fight these unconstitutional lawsuits. A couple years ago, they added $7 million to the budget just so that's your tax dollars to fight these unconstitutional lawsuits. Their intent for this bill you're talking about is for it to go to the Supreme Court because they don't like the decision that was made more than 40 years ago, decades ago. Our Supreme Court in Plyler versus Doe decided that all kids, regardless of their status, can attend public schools because it's a benefit to this country that everyone is educated. And so for decades, all kids have been attending public schools.
Right.
But they don't like the decision, so they are going to give this challenge and take it up to the Supreme Court because now they have a corrupt court that will likely come to a different decision. And so here they are. I mean, we could all agree that there's a problem and we need good policy for immigration. I will give you that. And I will say we need someone to do the hard work of sitting down in D.C. because that's where immigration policy has to come from. Sit down in D.C., come to the table, write a policy that works for everyone, a path to come to this country, you know, work hard and become a citizen.
Yes.
That's what we need to do. Mass deportation is not policy, especially when you're lying about who you're deporting. And so this is this like, well, we're mad about immigration, so we're going to attack 6 and 7 year olds. That is what bullies and cowards do. I work with bullies and cowards
You sure do,
on the
Gloria.
other side of the aisle.
Say it again.
And why would you go after 6 and 7 year olds and kids because you're big mad about immigration policy? Get on those Republicans up there and tell them to sit down and do the work of writing policy. There's bills up there that Republicans and Democrats in past years have agreed about immigration policy and a path to citizenship and how we do that for people. They're not interested in good policy. They're interested in chaos and disruption and distraction.
That part.
These people aren't smart enough to write policy. I mean, we just found out that this whole tariff nonsense is based on Navarro's fake expert that he actually put in books, and it's an anagram of his own last name. I mean, these people are wackadoodle. It's crazy when you think about it. It's literally, if you brought it as a script to Hollywood, they go, oh, nobody's going to believe that.
You don't until you see it, and you're like, so Gloria, how do we, as educators, as students, as activists, as just
Normal.
right-minded, not right-minded, but like normal-minded civilians, how do we fight back for this freedom?
We have to show up, stand up, speak up. You know, just this past Saturday, Elizabeth Warren was here.
She was here.
And she said, make those phone calls to your senator and your congressman. You know, you feel like it's not working, but you've got to do it. But also show up and show up everywhere that you can and meet them in person and all of this stuff. Show up and ask questions. And it's just so important that we do up and show up at your school board meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, it is horrifying to me. I mean, the ignorance is mind-boggling to me. I sit in committee and these guys, when in my life, I'm 62 years old, for 61 of those years, diversity, equity, and inclusion were positive terms.
Oh, we have.
You would think I stabbed somebody
We
if
got
I
a
say
question
one
We
of
got a
on
those.
question
that
about
later
that.
for you
And
because
that's
it's so true.
Yes, and
You're
that-
like, that
I
is
mean-
just the basics of treating people like humans.
But the
and-
worst part is how dumb they are in that they think DEI is the same thing as affirmative action.
Yeah.
And bless their hearts, it's not. And we need to call them out on this. And I don't have a problem, first of all, with affirmative action. But they think it's like about it's just about making the people who work in your company feel respected and comfortable so that they do their best work.
That's it.
Yeah.
Period.
And they think it has something to do with hiring and all of this stuff. And it's like, bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
Because words have meanings, and y'all need a really good dictionary.
Say that again, and let's continue to, because it's not that expensive. Let's continue to drag some of these Tennessee politicians.
Yeah,
because I like to say the tea is sweet, but the shade is even better. What is one bill that came across your desk that clearly shows the writer had no idea what they were talking about?
So this is a tough one, because a lot of times they do know exactly what they're doing, and it's devious as heck. But there's some bills that come across that are just terrible. They're just outrageous. But probably the worst one this year is that 793 to prevent kiddos from attending public school. And but a lot of the anti-LGBTQ bills are ridiculous. Like, how many bathroom bills do we need? Honestly.
Excuse me.
But you're so worried about the bathrooms, but you can't talk about the gun violence.
Right.
Something
Right. They say they're protecting kids because they're not letting trans women in women's sports. But there was not a single trans woman in Tennessee wanting to play women's sports. It was not happening. No. There are 530,000 NCAA athletes, less than 10 are trans.
Less than, yeah.
I mean, come on.
We're making a problem out of nothing.
You would think, when I was running for U.S. Senate, I would go around to all these counties and I would say, the things that are affecting you is the fact that these Republicans refuse to raise the minimum wage.
Yes.
$7.25 an hour is not enough to live on. They refuse to expand Medicaid so everyone has access to affordable health care. They refuse to fully fund our education system. And we are in the bottom 5 in funding per student. And they want to brag about all the money they put in. Well, guess not. It's not close to what everybody else is putting in. You're in the bottom 5. The number doesn't matter, except that number of where you are in the country, and we are in the bottom 5. So stop pretending that what they're telling all these people is, well, the fact that 2 women are married down the street is why your family is struggling. Well, let me tell you, the fact that 2 women down the street are married has nothing to do why your family is struggling. Your family is struggling because they don't have affordable health care, because they're making a low wage. Because we live in a state that decided last year to give $1.8 billion in tax cuts to corporations who don't pay taxes in Tennessee, instead of taking the sales tax off groceries for Tennessee families.
Right.
So don't tell me that they care about kids or that they care about families when they are passing legislation that is making children feel horrible about themselves. I mean, we know that with our kids who are transgender, there's a high risk of suicide. And for us going after and attacking children, last week we passed a bill through committee that allowed teachers and school staff to bully children and refuse to call them what they asked to be called, and made that's their religious freedom to bully a child.
Gloria,
Remarkable.
I'm honestly tearing up because as a child who was bullied in school, growing up gay, being secret in a very conservative town, that breaks my soul. How there are fucking imbeciles out there that have a thought when they wake up in the morning that is okay. Like that, it really tears me, because that's you're squashing someone from becoming their most potential self, and they're
just from happiness and success.
Yes. And like education, like it is the most powerful tool that you can ever do research, grow to know, and to know that like we have kids, teachers can bully kids like that. Like I mean, I remember too when you can get spanked. I used to get spankings in elementary school way back in the day.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
I got whippings and stuff, and I didn't know that shouldn't have been a thing.
Yeah,
That we
right.
had, but it was like, oh God, oh sorry, but it irritates me so, and just gets my blood boils.
Thank God most teachers are not going to do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are some out there
That will
because
fall
I've
for
had
it.
kids sit in my office and tell me about their experiences. And it's so hurtful. Just like this bill, I hope every school system will say, because this bill technically is permissive, I hope every school system would say, we're not asking that question. We're just going to keep taking kids. And I hope if a school system decides to implement this, if we pass it, then I hope they get backlash for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you know, this is the same example. If you remember, just a couple of years ago, they passed you can arm teachers. Your school system can arm teachers. You know what really makes me furious is I don't know a single journalist in this state that called every school system to ask if they implemented it when the law came in. I don't know of a single one who did. And I think we need, in the press needs to talk about, they passed this legislation and not one school system adopted it, because they are doing this stuff to school systems and not for them, because the school systems are not asking for this stuff. I went to all 95 counties over the past year, and not one person asked to refuse kids from attending public schools. And the lie behind this, that we can't pay for it. They talk about how much immigrants cost in the state, a few $1 million. What they don't talk about is the literal $1 billion that immigrants bring into our state, and the income that they generate in the state, which is $1 billion.
Yep.
And so, they pay every tax that we pay. This is a sales tax state. They pay all the same sales taxes, and they pay property taxes.
Yep.
They pay all the taxes we pay. They are paying for their school, but you want to refuse it to them. Or this bill also could make them pay for
tuitions.
it. They are already paying every tax every Tennessee citizen pays already.
Girl. Well, okay, on that note, with all this rambunctiousness
Foolery.
and foolery
Yeah.
going on, what Tennessee politician do you think is doing the absolute most right now in the worst way possible?
Well, you just can't pick one. Because here's what you've got. They all go along.
They do.
Together, regardless
It's like
of
one mind.
there might be a few who disagree. They'll still vote with them anyway, because they're afraid, because they are so petty and vindictive and retaliatory.
Yeah.
We've seen them be removed from committees. We've seen me be
locked your scooter
removed
up.
committee. We've seen me not get in office because I didn't vote for the speaker. They are retaliatory toddlers. That is what they are. And so they're so afraid of losing something or getting an opponent. I mean, they have literally told them, we will get an opponent and fully fund them in your next election.
Wow.
Are you
Or they'll give them a crappy office, or they will not give them a chair. They'll take away their chairmanship. Oh yeah.
They petty.
But the worst part is these cowards go along with it.
Yep.
Stand up. You are supposed to be supporting the people that sent you here. And guess what? 80% of Tennesseans want to see something done about gun violence. That's all parties. 80% of Tennesseans want abortion care at some level. That's all parties. 84% want paid family leave. That's all parties. 60% want to see the wage raised, and 65 or 70% want to see Medicaid expansion.
Wow.
They are ignoring the majority of their
yes.
voters. They have gerrymandered the state so much
Yep.
that they need to motivate their red meat base to win their Republican primaries, and then they don't think they need to worry about a Democrat.
I want to touch on one thing, not one thing, a lot of things you said. But my question related to reproductive rights and abortion. They're so hot topics. I don't think folks understand. But anyway, what's the most hypocritical stance have you heard
Oh.
Oh, God, here we go.
from throw a politician on this issue.
Let's go with just last week. So Gino Bolso has a bill that says that we have to teach in school that the way to success is to finish high school, finish college, get married, then have children.
Oh, okay.
Sounds a little like Christian nationalism to me.
Does.
But I mean, how about your privilege, right?
Right.
And so I'm thinking, you know, first I raised my hand, it's like, I didn't do it that way.
You sure didn't.
You know, and most people I know, I bet you if we took a poll in the room of the 99 House members, I'll guarantee you it's less than 50% went that way.
Say it again.
And I'm sure they call themselves successful. They're successful at fooling a lot of people. But
Wait, go to where was it? High school, college, go to and what's the other?
Get married.
high school, college, get married, and then have kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so they want to teach this because this is the path to success.
That's the path.
And I said, no, what we need to teach are the skills that make you successful.
Yes.
And I said, he said that this is what research says about success. And I said, well, because when I read his bill, I'm like, I'm going to read up on the research of being successful. And the first thing that popped out is it's not circumstances, but characteristics of people who are successful. You know, like having grit and determination,
100%.
being a goal setter, being somebody who follows through, you know, being somebody who focuses on the skills and a problem solver. You know, all of these things are what make you successful, not your circumstance in life. I mean, I know so many people that you weren't even close to that path that are huge
Right.
successes because they learned the skills and they were taught how to carry on and how to set goals and all of those things. And that's how we benefit kids is by showing them what they're capable of doing
Yes.
and letting them do that, not by saying you have to go through these steps. I mean, you're basically telling kids that maybe live in a single parent home or,
Yeah.
you know, you're just basically telling them you're never going to do it. And so the hypocrisy, and I said this in committee, and they lost their minds. They cut my mic. They lost
They
their
love
minds.
cutting mics.
They do.
I said, in a state where you're going to force a 10-year-old to carry a pregnancy, and then you're going to tell me you can't be successful. So you just made this child unsuccessful because you forced a 10-year-old to carry a pregnancy, because that's what your law did. But now you're saying you have to do this, so you're damning that child to failure?
Yep. Already
And
at 10
possibly
years old.
death. We
Yeah.
know that children carrying a pregnancy die at 2 times the rate of women. And Tennessee has one of the highest rates of women dying in pregnancy, 3 times more for black women. So, I mean, these people are nuts.
What? Like, what goes on when you
Right.
wake up in the morning?
I want to know
like,
what research he did.
Girl, where did you get your research from? The bum across the street or something?
Yeah, I
What?
mean, some right-wing book they read and
Yes.
called it research.
Research. Okay,
It's-
speaking of books,
Oh, these.
we know here in Tennessee, a big armpit of what I like to call the United
Yeah.
States, Florida. You know, these
Florida.
these states that are just banning books
Banning
every
books,
book.
and look at the books that they are banning. Books by black authors,
Yeah.
books by
Yes.
brown authors, and books by LGBTQ authors.
yeah.
Why
They're
though?
so-
Like,
these people are so afraid of anything that doesn't look or act or
Like
believe
them.
like them. This is, I think, the reason they have to have guns. I think they're afraid to walk outside the door. They might meet somebody who doesn't think like them. Like, when I meet somebody different than me, it's like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah,
we are
sure.
going to talk and have a conversation. When I hear somebody speaking a foreign language, I'm like, oh, I wonder what it is, and I want to know where they're from, and
Yes.
and all this, you know, curiosity and everything. And they just freak
They get
out.
scared.
I mean, they believe the nonsense, this propaganda that they're hearing. You know, this idea that we're teaching kids to be gay.
Indoctrinating kids.
Please, are we teaching kids to be black
Yes,
too?
Yeah,
like,
right.
makes
I mean,
sense.
it's just like because they read a black author, or they read about black people. It's so remarkable. You know what? I spent my high school and college years reading every book about serial killers. I have not serial killed anybody. Never.
Thank you.
I didn't even think about it. I mean, it's a crazy interesting topic to me, but I didn't ever kill anybody.
Right.
This is not why we read books, you know. And kids want to read books that have characters that look like them.
Yes.
They want to see
Yeah.
themselves in the curriculum. They want to see themselves in the books that are offered. And this idea that you're going to whitewash our history, kids need to see themselves in the history, and not only as slaves,
Yes, we're
but
more-
as the great and brilliant black people that helped build this country.
Yes.
Listen, white people didn't bring the culture. All the other
Right,
colors did.
right.
I'll be
We-
honest.
that's-
Like, we brought tea over, and that was probably about it. Okay, excuse me.
And that's the thing, we want to be inclusive. Everyone has a seat at the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
So, Brandon's question, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's actually your
I
question.
have a question for you though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which one banned book would you recommend for someone to read? Would it be I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, Wacky Wednesday by Dr. Seuss, Recipe for Hate by Warren Kinsella, Gone Girl, Handmaid's Tale?
I recommend reading every banned book. I don't have it in here. I have a new sign that says read banned books.
Read banned books.
Right there on that shelf of my books. I've got quite a few banned books down there.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh,
Absolutely all of them. But yeah, some of them like that really, the Bluest Eye, and I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. The one that's the second grade book, Ruby Bridges.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, for second graders.
They didn't want to
Yeah.
it's
I'm just, it's just remarkable. And there's a book that a lot of my high schoolers read, and I read it. I thought it was a beautiful book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yes.
And it was so powerful, and so many kids really, they needed that book. And people pull little sections out without reading the whole piece. And I hate that kids are going through a lot of these things, but they are.
yeah.
And so seeing these things, it really helps them, and it makes them feel seen, and it makes them feel not alone. And everything that these fools are doing is so bad for kids, and it isolates kids, and we're erasing people. I get text messages. I got a text message from a friend who was transgender, and it's like, I just don't know what to do. I feel like they're erasing us. And I was like, they are trying.
They're trying.
To erase you.
But we gotta
But
speak
we
out.
see you, and we will be there. I mean, because it's people who look like me who have to stand up for these vulnerable folks who may not feel safe standing
Yeah,
up.
yeah, and we appreciate people like you for doing
Absolutely.
that, because it's also too. We have a question a little bit later, but it can be intimidating, for someone just.
Yeah.
I don't want to say a normal person, but like just no one who's not in politics and things
Yeah.
like that, like to just stand up and say something, and but it's. We'll get to that in a minute,
Yeah.
because I don't want to jump ahead.
I was going to say,
I
because
don't
one
wanna
of the
jump ahead.
proudest things for me after the Tennessee 3 moment is that so many people come up to me, and it's a lot of white women
Yeah.
who come up to me and say, thank you so much for standing up. You showed me how I can stand up.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about DEI real
Okay.
quick. Okay, well, we could spend all episode on this, but it seems to be an incredibly sensitive topic right now. Why do you think it's intimidating for certain people, and how do we have more accessible conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think we just have to stand up to these bullies and say, you're not
Stand up
taking
to
away
'em.
my words. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Stand up, push back, and say, first of all, you need to learn what this means.
Yeah.
You need to learn that affirmative action and DEI are two different things.
Two separate things.
And bless your hearts for not knowing that and understanding it to begin with, like most of us do.
Yeah.
But I sometimes even see Democrats equating those things, and they need to cut it out for sure. But what DEI is, it's just about, whether it's in your business or your school system, it's about making everyone feel respected and part of the team.
Yep.
And so you have better problem solving, you have better work coming out of your employees when everyone feels comfortable and respected in their workplace. It's common sense, and that's why so many CEOs are like, hell no, we're not getting rid of DEI. This is what makes our company great.
Yeah.
And we should be pushing back and not backing down. And universities, by all means, should be standing up and pushing back. Because what happens is they scare people by threatening their money.
Yeah.
And they threaten UT's money all the time. It's so annoying. And all these universities and colleges need to stand up together and say, you're not ruining our universities with your ignorance and your backwards ass thinking. Because that's what we need to do. Because, you know, in Tennessee, the reason we don't have Medicaid expansion is because they were all, you know, all the medical companies, the hospital association, the doctors, everybody wanted Medicaid expansion. But they were able to break each group off by threatening the dollars that come to them. If they had all band together and say, take it, we don't care, we would have Medicaid expansion. But they knew they could break them off and separate them and say, we need to be quiet or they're going to cut our funds. Let somebody else stand up, we need to be quiet. We don't need to be quiet. It is democracy's on the line. We are welcoming fascism straight in our door. It's white nationalism. They are whitewashing our history and damning us to repeat it.
You know what? I like to say white people. That's all you gotta say. Just white people sometimes, okay? Okay. So, Senator Marsha Blackburn, let's just...
She running somewhere.
She's running. She's always running. She's going somewhere. I know. Okay, so
she ran for me in the airport.
I saw that tweet. Why are you running so... And then you hop in a hot-ass car. The car ain't even started yet.
To go.
You're just running.
Okay, so she's faced major criticism for not holding town halls, not engaging with her constituents, with folks, just everybody. So what is your take on her approach with connecting to voters? And is it important for elected officials to have these direct conversations?
I think it really is. I think that, you know, what you see in a town hall, even if somebody's angry and they ask a question, just being able to ask the question of their elected official, even if they don't love the answer, they feel better, they feel heard. They were heard. You got to say it in public, people got to hear what you were concerned about, and your elected official heard it and responded to it. They're much more likely to do something about it if you brought it to them to the forefront in front of the public. And that is what we should be about all the time. You know, I am so accessible. I'll meet with anybody in my district. I meet with anybody up here. I don't tell folks no.
And how do you think that shapes the work that you do, just by being so accessible?
I think that people, and because I overshare on social media,
I love it.
I do too. You pop off.
People really, they feel like they know me, and they actually do, because I don't hold anything back. I think that people really want their elected officials to be real. And so many elected officials protect, and they're afraid to give you a straight answer. There's a lot of kids at a particular high school in Knoxville that's in my district, and they always want to interview, or it's a project of theirs to interview elected officials. So one of them interviewed me and interviewed a Republican, and they're like, your answers are so different.
It's not scripted.
You know, and they feel like, I feel like I'm learning something, and you know, and it was just like I just got some canned answers from this other person, but the stuff you're telling me is real. And I said, because it's about Tennessee families and their lives are real. And so be real. I think a lot of people who like Trump, they think he's real.
Exactly.
Because he comes across as this being real, but his whole thing is propaganda and lies. He no more cares for poor people than the man on the moon. To think the man with the gold toilet cares about a Tennessee family working 2 jobs, earning minimum wage is crazy.
Or now he got a gold card for someone can pour. With his face on it.
It's remarkable to me. You guys have been sold a bill of goods and bought it because he preyed on your hate.
He sure did.
He preyed on your hate and your fear. And the reality is, it's not black against white or brown. It's poor against the wealthy.
It really is.
They are all about keeping poor people down. And
And
we
yeah.
all need to band together and say, no, we're not going to take it. We will not let billionaires run
Tell
this
us
country.
what to
It's
do.
funny though when you see the billionaires losing all these billions,
Yeah.
and I'm like, look,
And
look at
crying
you,
on Fox News.
and crying. I'm like, kitty girl,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
So how can we stay resilient, especially standing up for your beliefs and being outspoken against the little playground going on at the White House?
Oh yeah.
We push back, but just staying resilient in the face of public opposition and political pressure. What's your secret of pushing forward?
Well, as a lot of people were saying the other day, don't agonize, organize.
Yeah.
And so that's what all this is about.
Say that one more time, Representative Gloria.
Don't agonize, organize. The 2026 election,
Yes.
just flipping a few seats in Congress will get us back to having the majority, which will stop a lot of this crazy. Well, I want a Senate majority too, don't get me wrong. But we have got to get at least one of them. If we can get both, that's a beautiful thing.
We sure can.
But so staying vigilant, paying attention, not getting discouraged. I've got so many friends that will say, I just can't, I have to turn it off. I just can't listen. And I say, well, that's your privilege. Because some people
Wow.
have to listen because it's affecting their daily life right now. These kids that this bill, House Bill 0793 is coming after, they don't have the privilege of turning it off. They've got to show up here every day that bill's in session so we can fight it. And so use your privilege to show up for people who need you. And please do that, because I know people have to take their time and do self-care, but please show up when you can, because it's the vulnerable in our state, in our country, that desperately need you right now.
I love that. I love that. And so my last question for you is, with everything that you've said, with all these challenges that are ahead of us, and we got a little over 3.5 years with Orange Julius still in the White House and stuff. Maybe less, who knows? We never know. But with these challenges ahead, how do you plan to keep advocating for change in the years to come?
To keep showing up and speaking up and standing up. I mean, that's what we have to do. And helping to elect people, young people like Rep. Jones and Rep. Pearson. This year we elected Representative Brooks and Gabby Salinas, who is our first Latina in the Tennessee legislature. So more of the same, more young people, more people who come to it because they care deeply about their community. Shondell Brooks lost her son in the Waffle House shooting. And she's here because she's been fighting for 6 years for gun sense legislation, and she decided that she was going to run for office and do it from the inside. So just bringing these people forward with a passion for truth and fairness and justice, because this is about justice and electing people that respect everyone.
Yeah.
We have 70,000 people in our districts, and all of them did not vote for me. And I don't agree with all of them. But I respect the human dignity of even those I disagree with. But I work up here with folks that have no respect for the human dignity of most of the people in their district. They will say they respect women. That's a lie. You don't respect women if you pass the laws they pass.
Yep.
That part.
They don't even say they respect the LGBTQ community. They don't respect the black community. They don't respect the brown community. They don't respect the disabled community. And they don't respect seniors. That's well over the majority of this state. Women are 52%. So, folks, we have a majority of people who can beat these guys. And we need to do it. Because right now, women in Tennessee are not equal. If you don't have autonomy over your body, you are not equal. And that is unacceptable.
Unacceptable. Like, you are human as you breathe and eat, just like anybody is out there.
No health care thing that we're requiring men to do or taking away from men.
And I wish we would, though. But as a man, though, because, like, It's bullshit how a woman, you can say this kind of stuff and
Yeah.
take something.
there's-
You know
yeah.
what, men? Get your balls snipped off or something. Like,
There's no law
something
against
should
it.
be
Yeah.
in
People
it.
people often come to me and say, Gloria, why don't you bring a bill that does so and so? And I said, well, that would not be true to myself because I believe everyone. I believe
Yeah.
men should have bodily autonomy. I believe women should have bodily autonomy. So I don't want to take it away from men, but we have to be serious about this means women aren't equal, and that is unacceptable. We are the majority.
Yeah.
And so the reality is, I don't understand when Dobbs happened, why I felt like every woman should leave their job and walk out into the street and go home. That's what I felt. We could shut this whole country down if women didn't come
We
to
can
work.
stay home and
Y'all
drink our tea.
birthed the men
Right.
who were being the nasties and stuff. Like,
exactly.
without women, we would not be here.
Yeah, and these men have got some women convinced
They delulu.
that they shouldn't be able to vote and
Yeah.
everything else. We're getting ready to pass a bill that's going to keep 70 million women, make it hard for them to vote.
If you have to change your
insane.
name
Are
and everything
you-
has to match your marriage certificate.
If your birth certificate doesn't match your ID,
and people,
you got to
I'm
fix
out.
that.
Who
That's
do I gotta
70
talk
million
to right
women.
now?
Yeah.
It's the SAVE Act. They're trying to do it to go after immigrants, but it's also women.
Yeah.
They won't say out loud they don't want women. Some of them will say out loud. If you watch Matt Walsh and some of those lunatics on their podcast,
Yeah.
they will say they don't want
to be
women
at
to
home.
vote.
Yep.
But they need to let the man vote for the family. But
And some of them can't even lead a household.
right,
Say it again.
yeah.
So, Gloria, our last question for you is: what can people expect from you?
Yeah.
You show up day to day
She's
work it-
ready.
and be in this office.
They can expect me to show up and fight for them. They can expect me to stand up for vulnerable communities. They can expect me to bring legislation that truly benefits the majority of Tennessee families. I can clearly state that any legislation that I brought is overwhelmingly supported by all Tennesseans. Expanding Medicaid,
Yeah.
paid family leave, raising the wage, investing in our public schools, gun sense legislation. All of that is overwhelmingly supported by all parties in Tennessee. But they are they've gerrymandered us so that we have very few seats. We've got to start picking up seats, and we will as people find out that everything they say is a lie.
A big old lie.
And it's here you saw them demand to have a special session for vouchers because vouchers has never for 10 years it's not been able to be passed because when people have time to hear about it week by week, they're like, oh hell no.
Yeah.
But they did it in 3 days behind closed doors with very little discussion. They can get it through. And all that is a big bankroll for hedge fund managers, the governor and his donors, and all the Republicans and their donors. Because those groups have spent millions up here to beat pro-education candidates. I know this because in 2014, they spent, on top of what myself and my opponent raised, the Republicans spent $250,000 on top of
Wow.
that from the voucher folks, charter school and voucher folks, to beat me. Then in 2016, they spent $700,000 to beat me. And they said I was, what did they say? It was really funny because they said I was ineffective. But Phil Williams got a hold of their opposition research, and he had my page for their opposition. Said she is the most effective in bringing those against vouchers to the Capitol. And,
Most qualified, most everything.
so it was really funny after all those years of them spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on mail against me that I was ineffective, seeing that in their actual paperwork they had me as the most effective. So,
Wow.
And it's crazy because we had Allie Phillips on, who she was on a couple weeks ago with
Yep.
us and talking about some things too of just how they targeted our kids and how they they spend so much money, and I'm like, $250,000.
That's a-
You know how many mouths you can feed the homeless that's around here?
Or have
like,
school lunches.
can we
Yes.
not divert Some of
One
those.
year, they kept using my friendship with Justin Jones as a way to beat up on me. And there was one picture they said, "Oh, she's friends with criminals," and I was covered in blood spatter.
What?
I mean, just outrageous, ridiculous lies. They do not care. They will say anything, do anything. But really, what all that negative mail does. The thing that they don't get is that most people don't believe it.
Yeah.
But what it does, I was knocking doors that year, right the week before the election day. It was already past early vote, that we had those 5 days in between. And I was only knocking the doors because we keep lists of people who hadn't voted yet. So I went to a couple's house, and they're like, we planned on voting, but we're just so sick of all this negative stuff that we just don't even want to go.
What?
And I was like, this is exactly their goal with all this
Yes.
negative mail. And explained it to them. They're like, we had no idea, but we were just feeling so defeated because of all this ugliness in politics. We wanted to step away. And I'm like, that is their goal with negative mail. Nobody really believes it.
Yeah.
But what it does, it discourages you about our politics.
Yeah.
And so, they went and voted, and I won that year. But it's just remarkable to me that, they're doing everything they can to discourage and literally try to legally keep people from voting.
Yep.
It's, if your vote was not that important, they wouldn't
would
try
try it,
so hard
yep.
to take it from you. And that is what they are doing.
That's our voice.
Yeah.
That's our
Yeah.
voice. That's the way
Yeah.
we use it.
And they're afraid of our voices
Yep.
because they're seeing their old man white ways going by the wayside. And how you cannot embrace diversity and all the great things it brings to your life and to the country is just remarkable to me.
It's insane.
These-
It is.
But we're glad that you are here.
Yes.
That you are doing the work, because it
Yes.
couldn't be me.
You think you couldn't do it, but I always say, 27 years teaching emotionally disturbed teenagers prepared me for the Tennessee legislature.
Yeah. Yeah, and you think
Yes.
kids are bad?
Hey, my kids were way better than these Republicans.
buffoons.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well,
They were smarter too.
I bet. They don't.
had education. Well, because they had a wonderful leader
And
to
they
teaching
understood being
Yes.
different was okay because they were all different.
And
Yes.
that's the important thing is our country was not founded by white
Yeah.
men. We had diversity. We had people that were already here that we're not the first ones here. And that's what's beautiful about America is we are so diverse and we let people, try to let people
Your
everyone
culture is
in.
not going to be taken away by
No,
inviting
it just
others
is enriched
in there.
by bringing in the others. I mean, it's why we have the banjo, folks.
Yes, that's what is here.
Exactly. Well, Miss Johnson, thank you. Gloria, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time today. We want to appreciate you. And any last closing thoughts you'd like to give to our viewers before?
Just get involved and make sure that you speak up and stand up, and especially for our vulnerable communities, because right now, that's what we've got to do in community. We've got to be there for those vulnerable folks that are being disappeared or attacked by our legislature or by our federal government, and just make sure that we're taking care of folks in our community.
What she said.
Nothing more.
All right, y'all. Have a good one.
See y'all next time on Milk Eggs.
And a whole lot of tea.
All right, bye y'all.